40 in the afternoon.
सारे game friends.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes. We'll start. Good afternoon to everyone. We'll start with our class now, right? Okay. So first and foremost thing is that we are going to do our vocab, right? Can you pronounce these words? The words are psychologist, psychoanalyst, orthodontist, optometrist, optician, osteopath, chiropractor, chiropodist. See, all different. I'm giving you a minute. Please repeat these words in
Ma'am, your
your
voice is
mind.
cracking.
Now, osteopath, chiropractor, and chiropodist. Now, all of them are having different roots. These words are having different roots. Now, yeah, let's go for the first root. Psyche. Sorry, did I give you all time to see the words? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll give you a minute. I'll give you a minute. Sorry, huh, beta. Okay. Now let us go to the roots, just understanding these words. The first word psyche means spirit, soul, or mind. Now this is the root. So whenever we talk about psychoanalyst or psychologist or psychic or psychopathy, these words, the root is spirit, soul, or mind, right? Then the next word is psychic. Now, psychic is somebody who possesses a sixth sense, a special gift of the mind reading, or any mysterious aptitude that cannot be accountable for logically. That is what is a psychic. Now, a psychic also can be a person's disturbance if he is emotionally or mentally, other than physically, means he is disturbed mentally. We call him a psychic also. But in true sense, in true words, it is a psychic is a person who possesses some kind of sixth sense, a special gift, who can read the mind. and there is no logical reason to what he says, but he is a mind reader. Then we have psychology. Now we have done psychology, means we have done logy last week. We have done the roots. I hope everyone is aware that we have been doing roots from the beginning. A lot of roots have been dealt with. So as we go ahead, the past roots cannot be forgotten. Means you cannot forget the past roots. You have to keep in mind what we have learned earlier. That is something you cannot give up. For example, logos. Now psychology. Psycho we know, psyche we know is mind or spirit. And logos we had already learned last time. It is a study or a science, right? Psyche is spirit or soul or mind, and logos we had studied was study or science. So together they make up study of human mind and behavior. See, you are joining two roots to get to the meaning of the word, right? Now the next word is psychopathy, psychopath. Now psychopath is a person who is having extremely, a psychopath is a person who is having antisocial and extremely egocentric behavior. Now such a person is somebody who lacks inner moral censor. He commits criminal acts without anxiety or guilt of doing them in order to obtain immediate gratification of desires. Means whatever he desires for, he will do it, no matter whether whatever he is doing is probably, if it is, even if it is a criminal act, he is not guilty about it. He is not anxious that whatever he is doing is wrong. A psychopath is a person who is antisocial, and he is having extremely egocentric behavior. See, today I have not only written the words, I have also written the meanings for you all, because you all can take the pic so that your learning becomes easy, because you have to repeat these words. But extra information I'm giving you, that psychopath is somebody whom I can say is antisocial. Why? Because he lacks inner moral censor. He commits criminal acts, and whatever he does, he is not guilty about it. He wants his desires fulfilled. He may be addicted. He can be addicted to hard drugs also. In other words, he has absence of social consciousness. That social consciousness is absent in him. He is a psychopath. Okay. Now psychopathy, again, psycho we know is mind, and pathy we know. What is pathy? What have we done about patho? Pathos means disease. Pathos is disease. So psychopathy is mental or emotional disorder. Again, I have connected two roots. Psycho, mind, and pathy or path is a suffering or a disease. Then we have psychosomatic. The word is psychosomatic. This is the next word. Now, soma means body. Psycho we know. Psyche we know. Psyche is mind. Soma is body, right? Now, so psychosomatic is the powerful influence that the mind has on bodily diseases. Psychosomatic is the powerful influence that the mind has on bodily diseases. Now, how it is, see, what happens is a person fears the consequence of being present at a certain meeting will develop a bad cold or a headache. Now, this is in his mind. Remember this thing. See, we have people who are suffering with this problem, with this disease. Sometimes people believe, if I do this, this will happen. If I go there, this might happen. If I don't do this, the consequence will be this. There is no organic cause within the body to suggest that this disease or this thing might happen. But it happens. Why? Because the mind plays over the body. The body keeps telling the mind keeps telling the body, it keeps fearing that if I go there, I'll have a bad cold, or if I continuously read this book, I'll have a headache. I may have a headache. I continuously have a headache. He keeps telling the mind, probably the person might not have a headache, but he gets a headache. He gets a headache because of the powerful influence that the mind has, especially on the unconscious brain. And let me tell you again, there is no organic cause within the body. The cause is within the mind. The fear, the pain, the cold, the consequence was developed in the mind. The mind created the disease. The body had no such kind of disease. I will get a cold if I go out without an if I without a sweater. Probably it may not be very cold. Probably the body may not get a cold, but the person kept on telling himself, no, I have come out today, I'm not wearing a sweater. If by the time I go home, I'm going to get a bad cold, I'm going to get a bad cold. The person actually gets the cold, and the cause of the disease is within the mind. That is psychosomatic, right? Then we have psychoanalyst, right? Now, psychoanalyst is a person who guides the patient to an awareness of the deep-seated unconscious causes of anxiety, fear, or tension. See, children today, from children to youngsters to teenagers, to every age, at every age, people are now seeking a psychiatrist because they are anxious, they have a lot of fears, they have a lot of tensions. So here a psychoanalyst comes into he comes into play. He is the one who is actually going to guide the patient. He's going to make the patient aware. Why is he anxious? People are anxious about many things in life, but they don't know the real reasons. The cause is not known to them, but they are anxious. They have some kind of fear, but they don't know why they are afraid of it. Children are afraid of the dark. They don't know why they are afraid of it. People get into conflicts and tensions, but they have no reason. Here, a psychoanalyst guides a patient. He makes a person aware of the deep-seated unconscious causes of anxiety, right? After that, we have psychogenic. Now, psychogenic again. Genic is what? Psycho is mind, and genic is what? Genesis. Genesis means birth, origin. Again, two roots joined together. Psychogenesis is dealing with mental and emotional origin. Something that has the origin of the disease is a mental or an emotional pain. Then we have psychotherapy, and that is psychological treatment. So these were the words under psyche. Psychic means from psyche. The root psyche. We have come up to so many words: psyche, psychic, psychology, psychopathy, psychosomatic, psychoanalyst, psychogenic, psychotherapy. These are our words for psyche. Okay. Next, we are coming to chiro. Chiro is hand. The root chiro means hand. Chiropractic, maintenance of integrity of the nervous system by manipulation and massage using hands. Now, who are these chiropractics? These are people who massage. It's not any kind of massage. It's a science. They know how to massage, pressing the right nerves in the nervous system. So they are chiropractics. Next is chirography. Again, chiro means hand, and graphy we know, graphy is writing. So chirography is handwriting, especially as distinct with topography. Now, chirography, in other words, means handwritten. Handwritten. It's a technique of arranging type of, like the font we have, the font, the style, appearance which we have when we are printing in our iPads or in whenever we are printing. It is a technique of arranging the type to make written language legible and appealing when it is displayed. Then we have chiropractic. Adjustment is a procedure in which trained specialists, that is, chiropractics are working. Now we know what are chiropractics. They are people who are massaging, they are maintaining the nervous system with the use of their hands. Chiropractors are specialists who use their hands or small instrument to apply a controlled sudden force to a spinal joint. The goal of this procedure, also known as spinal manipulation, is to improve the spinal motion and improve your body's physical function. The next word with the same root is chiromancy. Now, chiro we know is hand and mancy is prediction. Remember these roots, children. Chiro is hand and mancy, M-A-N-C-Y, is prediction. So when what we call is palmistry, the prediction of a person's future by interpreting the lines on the palms of their hand. Is right, feet. So the treatment of the feet and their ailments. Chiropodists are medical professionals that treat and maintain the health of your feet and ankles. Minor ailments such as heel pain, ingrown toenails, and they including sprains, infections, or fractures. So chiropodists is a foot surgeon. He is also called a podiatrist, right? Podiatrist. The last section of root words is odontist. Odontist means teeth. So the root here is odontus, teeth. Odontogenic. Odonto is teeth formation or development, and genic means producing or generating. So actually it is teeth producing or generating. So formation or development of teeth is called odontogenic. Formation or development of teeth is called as odontogenic. Then we have periodontics. Peri is around. The meaning of the root word peri is around, and odontics means tooth. So surrounding the tooth, that means speciality of the gums. When I talk about speciality of the gums, then the word is periodontics. The next word is endodontics. Endo means inner tooth. So dentists are speciality involving the pulp of the root canal. Something to do with the pulp of the root canal is endodontics. Exodontics, exo is out. So all these are roots that I'm giving you. Endo, within, ex, out. Tooth, speciality of the tooth extraction. We have exodontist, means somebody who removes the tooth. Ex means out. And donto is teeth. So somebody who removes the teeth out. We have odontography. Odonto again is teeth, and graphy means a representation, something written or represented in a special manner in a field of study. So that means a scientific description of teeth. A scientific description of teeth is odontography. Odontograph. Odonto again is teeth. Graph is writes. So an instrument for making or laying out the outlines of the teeth. Odontograph. We have endodontist. Endo means within. Dontist is dentist. So a dentist specializing in treating the pulp of the tooth. We have orthodontics. Ortho is a root which we did last week. Ortho means straight. And tontics is teeth. So spasgia is pain. So tooth pain. ache. And odontoectomy, odonto again is tooth, and ectomy is the root for extraction. So the extraction of a tooth that is partially enclosed by bone is called as odontectomy. Okay, odontectomy. Okay, now let us go back to the section where we are going to recall whatever we have learned, and let's see how much we have learned. Right? Okay. Is it there on everyone's screen? Right. Can you work with these words? We have the first word as psychologist. Please give me the option number. First, see it once. See it first properly. Here are the practitioners. On one side, we are having the list of practitioners, and on the other side, we are having the list of interests. So, which the interest of which pertains to which practitioner? Please mark. Tell me the answers. Right. The first one, psychologist.
I behavior.
I behavior.
I, behavior. Very good. Second, psychoanalyst.
The unconscious. B.
B.
The unconsciousness. Correct. Third one, orthodontist.
Teeth.
E.
Very good.
Teeth.
Fourth one, optometrist. A, vision. Optometrist, vision. Fifth one, osteopath.
D. Feet.
Osto is bones and blood vessels. So C.
C.
Fifth is C. C, correct. Sixth one,
G.
correct. It is chiropractor is joints of the spine. Correct. 7,
Feet.
feet. Very good. It is feet. Chiropodist. Then we have graphologist.
Handwriting.
Handwriting. Very good. Correct. And the ninth one, gerontologist.
Problems of aging.
We have done geron last week. Geron means old age, getting
F.
old. F. The answer is F. That is problems of aging. Okay. These are all the roots that we have done last week. Okay. Chalo. Do you understand these words? A psychologist must also be a doctor.
False.
False.
True.
A psychoanalyst follows Freudian techniques. Now, this is something I have not explained to you. True. Okay.
True.
Number 3. The orthodontist specializes in straightening teeth.
True.
True. Ortho is straight and dentist is dentist. Correct. Optometrist prescribes and fits glasses. Number 4.
False.
True.
Optometrist fits glasses. क्या करता है optometrist?
Prescribes and fits glasses.
Yeah, glasses ही का काम. He does glasses work, na?
Yes,
Okay. Fifth one, the osteopath may use massage and other manipulative techniques.
True.
True. Yes, be loud, beta, be confident. A chiropractor treats corns and bunions.
False.
Arre, no, it is true. It is true. I have given it over there. True. Number 7. A graphologist analyzes character from handwriting.
True.
True. Right. 8th one. A gerontologist is interested in the problems of adolescents. False. Because gerontologist is getting old. That way, geron. Okay. इसके बाद next क्या है? Delves into the unconsciousness.
Psychoanalyst.
Who delves into the psychoanalyst. Very good. Next. Uses either massage and manipulation or other standard medical procedures to treat illness.
Osteopath.
Osteopath. Correct. Number 3. Takes care of minor ailments of the feet.
Chiropodist.
Correct. Chiropodist. Next, analysis, straightens teeth.
Orthodontist.
Orthodontist, correct. Number 5, analysis handwriting. Writing is graph.
Graphologist.
Logy is study.
Graphologist.
Graphologist, correct. Number 6, dispenses glasses and contact lenses.
Optometrist.
Optician. Optician. Next, 7th one, deals with problems of aging.
Gerontologist.
Correct, gerontologist. Number 8, manipulates articulations connected to the spinal column.
Chiropractor.
Very good, chiropractor. Number 9, studies and explains human behavior. Psychologist, correct. Measures vision and prescribes glasses.
Optician.
Optometrist.
Optometrist, very good. Optometrist. Okay, now next we are having it here. Just 1 minute, huh? Can you pronounce these words? You can pronounce them. You have to know to pronounce them. Even I have a difficulty sometimes. I've kept the pronunciation on the screen for you all. Okay. Next. Can you work with these words? Psychology. Carefully read through. What is psychology? Psychology.
Study of the human mind and behavior.
Correct, it is. Logy is study and psycho is mind and behavior. Right. Number 2, psyche.
One's inner or mental life or self.
Correct. One's inner or mental life or self-image. 3, psychic.
A.
He has a sixth sense. Clue is he. H, correct. H, extrasensory, pertaining to the mind. Number 4, psychopathy.
Person lacking in social conscious
having
or
the
inner sense.
A. Mental or emotional disturbance.
Exactly. A person who's having mental or emotional disturbance. Correct. 5th one, psychosomatic.
G.
Yes, describing the interaction of mind and body. 6th one, psychoanalysis.
B.
B. Option B.
Correct.
B.
7th one, psychogenic.
D.
D.
Correct. Psychotherapy.
C.
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 C, general term for psychological treatment. C. 9th one, psychopath.
I.
Yes, a person who's lacking social consciousness, conscious or inner sensor. Correct. Next one. Say, do you understand these words? Say true or false. Psychological treatment aims at sharpening the intellect.
False.
True or false? False. Psychic phenomena can be explained on rational or physical grounds.
False.
False. There is no logical reasoning behind it. Number 3, psychopathic personalities are normal and healthy.
False.
False. Psycho matlab mind and pathy matlab disease. Usko disease hai. He's suffering for some mind disorder. So he's not healthy.
Yes, ma'am.
Psychosomatic symptom is caused by organic disease.
False.
False. There is no reasoning behind it. Every therapist uses psychoanalysis. Number 5.
True.
False.
True.
False. Number 6. A psychogenic illness originates in the mind or emotions.
True.
True.
It is true because psycho is mind and genic means birth, lena, genesis. Okay. Origin. Number 7. A psychotherapist must have a medical degree.
False.
False. A psychotherapist must have a medical degree is false. Psychoanalytically oriented therapy uses Freudian techniques.
True.
True. A psychopath is often a criminal.
False.
True. मैंने समझाया था. He goes to any extent. He is not anxious. He is not guilty. He is a drug addict. He can commit crime.
True.
So he is often a criminal. A psychopath is a criminal. You have these mad people. Na, sometimes they become lovers and they want to go to any extent to get the girl, or they want anything. And if they want to pursue something, they are going to go mad. They might kill people also to get it. They're not bothered, but they want it. That person is called a psychopath. Okay. Can you recall the words now? You have finished understanding them. You have worked with the words. You have understood the words, and now you are recalling the words. And recalling the words, Vaigru, recalling the words, the pronunciations also I have given this time. One, inner or mental life or self-image. Psyche, correct. The adjective that denotes the interactions.
Psychosomatic.
Mind and body.
Somatic.
Mind is psyche and body is soma. So, psychosomatic. Correct. Mentally or emotionally disturbed.
Psychopathic.
Correct. Psychopathic. Pathy is disease, suffering, and psycho is mind. Number 4, study of behavior.
Psychology.
Mind and logy combination. Extrasensory. They have a
Psychic.
psychic. So next time before calling people psychic, think twice. Treatment by Freudian techniques.
Psychoanalytic.
Analysis, correct. Pertaining to the study of behavior. Psychological and of mental or emotional origin.
Psychogenic.
Correct, psychogenic. So I am sure that by now you know all the roots also. You'll have learned many roots today. Am I right? Have you all learned them? All those children who were active participants in the lesson definitely have learned the words, the roots also. Now, today we're going now foreign words. Today's foreign words are on the screen. But let me ask you all, let me revise, let me recall the earlier ones that we have done till now. We have done prima facie. What is prima facie? Hello everyone.
First impression.
Primarily.
Yes, based on the first impression, correct. For primary inference, whatever you have seen. Sine de. Or sine de. Come on. Sine de. We have done this last time.
Something that is indefinitely adjourned.
Please repeat there. Sine de.
Something that is
adjourn
indefinite.
assembly.
Yes, when the meeting is
For an
adjourned.
indefinite
When we don't
correct.
know when the next meeting is.
Yes, when the right. Without assigning a day for further meeting. Correct. We have bona fide or bona fide.
In good faith.
Without
good faith.
Without
Very good.
intention.
Correct. Without intention to deceive. Right. Real, genuine, authentic, in good faith. Okay. Then we have status quo.
State of current affairs.
Exactly. The state in which the existing state of affairs. Now next we have de jure.
By law.
According to law.
According
Good.
to law.
De facto.
Default.
Opposite of de jure.
The opposite of de jure. That is situations that exist in reality, but they are not legally recognized. They exist, but they are not recognized. Legally, they are not recognized. This was last week. Last week we did ad absurdum.
To the point of absurdity.
Correct. when an argument goes on to such an extent that it starts sounding foolish. Then we had ad infinitum,
To
The
infinity.
point of
To
infinity.
infinity.
to the point of infinity. To infinity means again and again in the same way, forever. We had ad nauseum,
To a sickening degree.
To a sickening degree.
to a sickening degree, right? Then we had aficionado,
Knowledge,
Very
having passion.
enthusiastic, having knowledgeable and passionate.
correct. Exactly, passionate or intense, and he's having a person who is very knowledgeable and he's also very enthusiastic about an activity or a subject. Okay.
Yes.
Then we had annus mirabilis,
Very
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Remarkable.
a remarkable auspicious year. We also had annus horribilis,
A horrible.
year,
Bad
Very
year.
horrible.
To
a year of disaster or misfortune. Then we have a priori,
Based on theory.
Based
Based on
That is
theory
an
rather than
observation.
observations.
very good, correct. And then we had au courant,
being up to
Being
update.
up to date.
Well
up
informed.
to date. Up to date. Very good. That means words of whatever we have learned, they are knowing up to date. They are up to date, I should say. Good. Now we come into today's, we are looking forward for the next words. Today's 5 words that are beau geste, beau monde, bête noire, beau mot, beau vivant. Right? Okay, they're on the screen. I have also written their pronunciations for you all. The first one is beau geste. This means a noble and generous act. It means a graceful or magnanimous act. Right? I can make a sentence by saying, my fellow writers supported me by writing letters of protest to the publisher, but their beau geste could not prevent the inevitable. Beau geste means a noble and generous act. The next word is, I hope you're noting them down. The next word is beau monde. These words are French words. All these 5 words are French words. Children, you all have been doing French in school also, so pronunciation for you all will not be difficult at all, right? So beau monde. Beau monde means high society, fashionable society, a world of high society and fashion. That is beau monde. London was a center of this jet-hopping beau monde, or such elegant decor could impress even the beau monde. So beau monde means high society, fashionable society. The next word is bête noire. Bête noire. Bête noire is a person or thing that one particularly dislikes. A person or a thing that one particularly dislikes. Example, I was really concentrating because this Italian has been my bête noire. Okay, another sentence would be, talk of the good old college days way back had become his bête noire and he began to avoid his school friends. So bête noire is something or a person, someone or something that one particularly dislikes. Okay. The next word is beau mot. Beau mot is a witty remark or a comment. It's a witty remark. It could be a pun. It is actually an intelligent and funny remark. Means a clever remark, I should say. A clever remark. For example, we have we in literary language, in figurative speech, we could call it a pun. One beau mot after another flew out of his mouth, charming the audience. Witty remark or witty comment. And the last word is beau vivant. Beau vivant. Beau vivant means a person who devotes himself to a sociable and luxurious lifestyle. A person who lives luxuriously and enjoys good food and drink. He has refined tastes in food and wine. He loves to hold dinner parties and serve elaborate meals. Okay, I can say that beau vivant is a gourmet or a gourmand, somebody who devotes himself to social life, luxurious lifestyle, eating and drinking. Okay, it's true that he's quite the beau vivant, but when he gets down to business, he conducts himself like a Spartan. Right. So today's 5 words that we have learned are, I hope you'll have taken them down. Bourgeois,
Ma'am.
that means, yes, beta,
Ma'am, can you repeat the meaning of the first word?
I am repeating them again, beta. First word is bourgeois, a noble and generous act. It means a noble and generous act.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Then the next one is beau monde, which means high society, fashionable society. Then we had bête noire, a person who one particularly dislikes. We have beau mot, that means a witty remark or a comment. And then we have beau vivant, that means somebody who devotes himself to a sociable and luxurious life, more into eating, drinking, having parties, dinner parties, right? So this is what we have done today's 5 new foreign words. Okay, today's topic is adjectives, but as y'all know that last week's pronouns is left, a little bit is left. I will quickly go through it and then we will come to adjectives. Is it fine with everyone? I will take only 15 minutes to brush it up. Okay? Because
Okay.
I have to go through the rules of pronouns because it's very, very important. Right? So I'll go back there. Just give me a second. Okay. So here we start. Reciprocal pronouns. Now, reciprocal pronouns are used to refer to 2 or more people who can carry out an action at the same time and are affected by its consequences at the same time. Understood? If I talk about reciprocal pronouns, that means I'm talking about those pronouns. They may be referring to 2 or more people, but they are carrying out an action and at the same time they are also getting affected by the consequences of the action. There are only 2 reciprocal pronouns, each other and one another. Each other and one another. They are used to express mutual reciprocal relationship. Each and one apply to the subject. Other and another are objects. Now remember, as I have told you, these are those pronouns that they carry out, those that carry out an action, and at the same time they get affected by the consequences of the action. Reciprocal pronouns have to have an antecedent. That means a noun or a pronoun that has been mentioned earlier in the sentence. They have to have an antecedent.
आवाज pause हो रहा है.
आवाज, okay. Just give me a second, beta. Right? Yeah. So I was talking about reciprocal pronouns, and I told you very important criteria of reciprocal pronouns is that the reciprocal pronouns no doubt may refer to two people or many people or more people, but these pronouns carry out an action. The people that are being referred to, they carry out an action. The people that are being referred to carry out an action, and at the same time they are affected by the consequences of the action. Then very important point is that they have to have an antecedent. What is an antecedent? A noun or a pronoun that has been mentioned earlier in the sentence. These cannot normally appear as a subject of the main clause, because the antecedent should be in the sentence itself. These occur as object of a verb or a preposition in the sentence that has a plural subject. Now, each other is used for two people. When I talk about two people, then I use each other. And when I talk about more than two people, then I use the reciprocal pronoun one another. No two artists approve of each other's work. No two artists. I'm talking about two people. I have used each other. The children can help each other in doing their homework. Children is plural, more than two. That is why we have used. The children can help each other. Here I can use one another also, because children is plural. Children can mean two also. Children can mean more than two also. The children can help each other in doing doing their homework. The children can help one another in doing the homework. Yes, because more than two. Okay, after this we go to relative pronouns. Now, a relative pronoun has two functions. A relative pronoun has two functions. Function number one is it refers to the antecedents. That means it is referring to the noun or the pronoun that has been mentioned earlier in the sentence. The other important function is that it introduces a subordinate clause. That means because it is introducing a subordinate clause, it serves as a connective between the main clause and the subordinate clause. They are used as conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions. We have learned them in school. Subordinating conjunctions are relative pronouns. So a relative pronoun has two functions. Number one, it refers to the antecedents. And number two, actually that is a real function because it's a pronoun. A pronoun always stands for a noun. So referring to the antecedent is the main function. But it also is used to introduce a subordinate clause. It is also used as a subordinating conjunction. Now, under relative pronouns, we have who, whom, whose, which, and that. Who, whom, whose, which, and that. Who is used for persons, whom, people, whose, people, as well as objects, which, things, and that is used for persons and things. Right? I'm explaining what is written over there is there for your knowledge. You all can take it screenshot. I'm explaining. Please listen to the explanation also. 5 relative pronouns: who, whom, whose, which, that. Who is for persons, whom is for people, whose is for people as well as objects, which is for things, and that is for persons and things. Okay, there are examples given over there. Blissful is he who is ignorant. Who is used for the person. They also serve who stand and wait. Again, who is used for person. Which is used for things without life and animals. The book which I have bought is a non-fiction, which is being used for the book, that is lifeless object. The elephant which has a long tusk was taken to the circus. The elephant is being referred to animal, so we have used which also refers to a sentence. See, he said he picked me up, which was true. In this case, which is being referring to a sentence also. He said he picked me up, which was true. Here which is referring to the sentence. Who, whose, whom are used for persons or for animals, intimate with persons. The boy who looks smart is the culprit. The diary whose pages are torn was found in the dustbin. So this way also you can learn who, whose, whom are for persons. Now remember, who is for subject. Who is a subjective case. Whom, objective case. And whose is the genitive or the possessive case. We have those cases. Last week we have done them. Last week also we have done them. Subjective case, objective case, that means nominative case, accusative case, and genitive case. Who is subjective case? When it is when it refers to the subject of the sentence, or it is acting as a subject. Whose is possessive, and whom is for persons. That is used instead of who and which. Now where, these are the important rules, please take note. After the adjectives in the superlative degree, this is the best thing that has happened in my life. So if there is a blank after a superlative degree or an adjective in the superlative degree, you will use the word that. Okay. Number 2. After two antecedents, one requiring who for a person and the other which for animal or thing. See, Mary and her lamp that had trespassed. Here we are having Mary, who is a person, lamp, who is a animal or thing. The pronoun that has to be used is that. Mary and her lamp that had trespassed school premises were thrown out by the teacher. Number 3, where are we going to use that? See, these are the rules. Where all will you use that? Number 3, after the words only, any, same, all, nothing, you are going to use the word that. All that glitters is not gold. It is nothing that surprises me. So that is used after the words only, any, same, all, nothing. That is used after the interrogative pronoun who and what. What is it that troubles you? Who is it that does not eat its food? What always refers to things, never to persons. This is what I want from you. Next rule, as is used as a relative pronoun after the, same, and such. I like such persons as are sincere. This is the same as I have lost. The same as means of the same kind. The same dash dash that means one and the same. My dress is exactly the same as yours. I have never seen such a picture as this one. Getting it? As is used as a relative pronoun after the, same, and such. I had not mentioned that as is a pronoun, a relative pronoun. Now I'm telling you, we use the word as a relative pronoun, but we use it after the same or such. And I'm telling you the meaning of the same as is of the same kind. Like my dress is exactly the same as yours means my dress is the same kind as yours. And I have never seen such a picture as this one. That means I have not seen something, anything like the same like this. Got it? Then the next one is but. But also I Parth, I'm
Yes.
not speaking
Yes, ma'am.
beta. Anush, Parth, you have become the host. Please make me the host, dear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, dear.
It's done.
Thank you, Parth. Thank you so much. Yes. So I was talking about but. I was talking about but when I told you that it is used as a relative pronoun in the negative sense. There is no animal but responds to tender care. That means there is no animal which does not respond to tender care, or who does not respond to tender care. So but also is used as a relative pronoun. Now, when do we omit the relative pronoun is very important. When the relative pronoun is the object of a verb or the preposition, it is often omitted. The policeman we arrested was a sincere one. Now here the sentence, I don't know, something wrong in the sentence, but the policeman whom we arrested, it's a thief. I don't know whatever the sentence is, but what I mean to say is here in this sentence, whom becomes, see, whom itself is object. As I have already told you that who is nominative case, whose is possessive case, and whom is objective case. So in all those places where I can put whom, I can easily omit them because whom becomes the object of the verb or the preposition. The policeman who was arrested was a sincere one. Now here I cannot omit it. Why? Because who is not the object of the verb. Who is the subject of the verb. When I'm using you, who acts as a subject. That is why it cannot be omitted. But in the sentence above, the policeman we arrested was a sincere one. There I could say the policeman whom we arrested was a sincere one. Here whom is the object of a verb or a preposition. Whom acts as an in the objective case, so we can easily omit it. Now, the position of a relative pronoun. The relative pronoun should be placed near its antecedent. That means the noun or the pronoun that it is referring to. Otherwise, a sentence will have a different meaning. This is what we do in modifiers. Later, the topic will be coming when we have a separate topic for modifiers, dangling modifiers, and whatever. Under modifiers, when we will learn modifiers, we will be working on this position of relative pronouns, because when we place the relative pronoun far away from the antecedent, the sentence has a different meaning altogether. The bag belongs to Rahul that you carried. See, look at the sentence. The bag belongs to Rahul that you carried. Who have you carried? Rahul or the bag? The bag is something that you have carried. So the bag you carried belongs to Rahul. The bag that you carried belongs to Rahul. And the antecedent is omitted sometimes. Who laughs last laughs best. Here the antecedent actually is he. He who laughs last laughs best. But we can omit the antecedent. We told you in the beginning that it has to, the relative pronoun always is close, standing close to, or it is referring to the antecedent in the sentence. But there are cases where the antecedent is omitted sometimes. Two examples I have given below. Who dances well will become an actor. The sentence actually is he who dances well will become an actor, but he who is omitted. The next rule is the relative pronoun must be of the same number and the person as its antecedent. The girl who was sweet, who standing for girl, was singular. You who are learned should be humble. Who is standing for you, that is person, and number is are. Why? Because we always use you are. You is kabhi nahi bolte hain. He that is not with me is not necessarily my foe. He that eats well, eats सारा है, he है इसलिए. Eats is singular. He is singular. They who are, they plural. Who are plural. They who are forever. Grumblers can never get contentment. Okay, thank God we are coming to the end. No, okay. The case of the relative pronoun depends upon its relation to the verb. Sudha is the woman who loved him. Sudha is the woman whom I desire. See how it is changing. Sudha is the woman whose earring I have. He whom I admire, by whose kindness I live, is my elder brother. Look at all the 4 sentences and try to understand. The relative pronoun is depending upon its relation to the verb. Sudha is the woman who loved him. Here it is who. Why is it who, beta? Hello. What is the difference in these 4 sentences? How did we decide who डालना है, whom डालना है, whose डालना है, क्या डालना है? Hello.
First में सुधा के बारे में बात हो रही है. We are referring to Sudha, that's why who. When we are talking about
Yes.
I, that's why whom.
It is actually Sudha loved him. Am I right? It is actually, the sentence is what? Sudha loved him. Hello. Hello. Sorry, I'll not. You continue. I'll talk later. Hello. Who was Anushka?
Ma'am, it's okay.
Continue, beta. Continue.
We are talking about.
नहीं आप बोलो. Continue.
In the first sentence, we are talking about Sudha, so that's why who.
Yes.
In the second sentence, we
Okay.
are talking about I, as in that person who has said the sentence. That's why we are saying whom. The relation is shown between I and Sudha. and then I have something. So that's the relation between having the object.
नहीं बेटा, अगर I और अगर I होता, whom is being used in the objective case. Correct? I desire Sudha. And Sudha के लिए whom है.
Okay, ma'am.
सुधा के लिए whom है. And sentence है I desire Sudha. तो सुधा निकाला है इसलिए whom है. That is why we have used whom. Whom stands for objective. समझ रहे हो आप?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Third sentence.
Ma'am,
I have Sudha's earring. Sudha's earring. So Sudha's is possessive noun. So possessive pronoun क्या होगा? Whose. तो whose डालना है हमने. सबको समझ में आ रहा है बच्चे मैं क्या बोल रही हूँ? Everyone's understanding what I'm trying to tell. In the beginning also she is very right. Anushka, you're correct, beta. You're Anushka, right? Who was giving the answers?
yes, ma'am. My name is Anushka.
Yes, Anushka, you're very right. You were right over there when I said Sudha is the woman who loved him. Sudha loved him. Now, जैसे आपने समझाया, remember what I told you in the beginning? Who, whom, whose. You have to understand that they are in different cases. Who is always a subject. When we were speaking about Sudha, we are referring to Sudha. Who डाला है वहाँ पे, right? Second sentence में I desire Sudha. So Sudha here becomes the object of the sentence. That is why it is whom. In the third sentence, I have Sudha's earring. So Sudha's earring, Sudha. Sudha's is possessive noun. तो उसका possessive pronoun क्या होगा? Whose. That is why we have used whose. Now, he whom I admire, by whose kindness I live, is my elder brother. Here it is my elder brother's kindness. So my elder brother's apostrophe s possessive noun है, उसका replacement possessive pronoun होगा, इसलिए वहां पे whose आ रहा है. Got it? Such fill in the blanks come. That is why understand it. Okay. Then we are having compound relative pronouns. Whomsoever, whatsoever, whichever, whatever. These are compound relative pronouns that are made by forming ever, so or so ever. Okay. So whatsoever, whichever, whomsoever. I shall accept whatever you propose. So this was relative pronouns. And I think the last one is the interrogative pronoun. Okay. An interrogative pronoun, we all know, asking questions. The pronouns which are used for asking questions are called interrogative pronoun. Again, who is referring to a person. What refers to things. Whom refers to persons or things. We can have compound interrogative pronouns, again formed by ever, to, whichever, whoever, whatever. Now the usage of interrogative pronouns are, who is used for persons only, who gave you this gift, which is used for inanimate things, that means things without life, which is the other book that you lost, what is used for a thing only, what did the teacher say. Interrogative pronouns are used in asking indirect questions. I do not know who has done this. Tell me what you would like to have. These are indirect questions. Who gave you that book? Here who? Nominative case, subjective case. Whose is this pen? Genitive, possessive case. जहाँ पे possessive आएगा वहाँ पे whose आएगा, whether it is interrogative or whether it is relative. Whom did you meet? Whom is coming in the as an object of the sentence. So accusative case, which refers to both persons and things. Which and what are used as interrogative adjectives. How? See the sentence. Which novel are you reading? Which novel? Which is standing before the noun novel. So it is an adjective. What strategies are you going to adopt? Strategies is a noun. Before strategies, what is there? So what here becomes interrogative adjective. Last week also I have spoken to you all about this, that interrogative pronouns become interrogative adjectives, and before we were doing about possessive adjectives becoming possessive pronouns, or possessive pronouns becoming possessive adjectives. So here we have finished the pronouns, and today we will start with adjectives. How much ever we can do, we'll just start. Okay, just give me a minute. So here we start with adjectives. An adjective is a describing word that adds something to the meaning of a noun. This we have all in our school days. It is very easy, so we are going to just quickly rush through. An adjective is a describing word that adds something to the meaning of a noun. Harsh is a clever boy. Clever shows what kind of boy Harsh is. Clever describes the boy, Harsh. I do not like that girl. Which girl? Which girl is meant? That. That is an adjective. He gave me 10 oranges. How many oranges? 10. 10 is an adjective. The position of an adjective is very important. Look at these two sentences. The lazy boy was punished. The other sentence is, the boy is lazy. Now here, lazy is coming before the noun. The adjective lazy is coming before the noun. It is modifying without a linking verb, and there are direct modifiers. We'll come to modifiers later. But here it is coming, the adjective is coming before the noun. That is why it is attributive adjective. Lazy stands before the noun. The boy is lazy. Here, lazy is again an adjective, but this time the adjective is after the noun. It is in the predicate part of the sentence. The boy is a subject, is lazy is the predicate. The adjective is standing after the noun in the predicate part of the sentence. That is why it is predicative adjective. So there are two positions of the adjective. We have attributive adjectives also, and we have predicative adjectives also. Attributive adjectives are adjectives that occur, or they usually come before the noun, and predicative adjectives are adjectives that come after the noun. Then we are having kinds of nouns. We are having kinds of adjectives. Adjective of quality, I can say descriptive adjective. We have adjective of quantity, adjective of number. See, quantity and number are both different. You will see how. Then demonstrative adjective, distributive adjective, emphasizing adjective, interrogative adjective, possessive adjective, proper adjective, relative adjective, and the last one is exclamatory adjective. Now let us see. Let us learn a little bit about them. Adjective of quality means the kind. When I'm talking about the kind of person or thing, then it is quality. So it is adjective of quality. What kind of thing it is, or what is the quality of a person or a thing, then it is adjective of quality. The Ganges is a holy river. What kind of river? Holy river. So holy is adjective of quality. Then we have adjective of quantity. Now adjective of quantity shows how much of a thing is meant. When I say adjective of quantity, I mean how much of a thing is meant. All, any, enough, half, little, much, no, whole, some, etc. All these are adjectives of quantity. He drank much milk. I want some paper. I drank a little milk. Here, little, some, much are adjectives of quantity. Adjectives of number. Now they will show how many. Show how many are meant or in what order. For example, adjective of number would be 5. It could be fifth. It could be first. It could be one, all, few, many, some. Now, under adjective of number, there are two kinds, the definite numerals and the indefinite numerals. Adjective of number are further broken into or further divided into definite numerals and indefinite numerals. Okay? Definite numerals show exactly how many persons or things there are. They show in what order or in series, in a series, any of them. For example, in a series in which they stand. 4, 4, 9, 9. Now, indefinite numerals are those adjectives of number which do not show the exact number. So they are indefinite. Numeral means number. Definite number means first, second, third, fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Indefinite numerals means a number which is not definite. Means it could be all, it could be few, it could be several, it could be some. All men must die. All, we know all, a number of men, but how many? All. Correct? Let us go for emphasizing adjectives. Adjectives used with nouns for the sake of emphasis is called emphasizing adjectives. Examples of two emphasizing adjectives are own and very. I saw this very book. Now here very is an emphasizing adjective because I am trying to point out, to emphasize that this book, this is the very book that I saw. This is my own pencil. Here I want to say that this pencil is my own. I am emphasizing on the word, on the adjective own. That is why it is emphasizing adjective. Interrogative adjectives. The interrogative pronouns what, which, and whose, if used with nouns in asking questions, are called interrogative adjectives. For example, what manner of man is he? Which way shall we go? Whose book is this? Do you understand? When I am using the interrogative pronouns, which pronouns? What, which, whose, to ask questions, but I'm using them with nouns, like we just discussed the last point of pronouns we discussed. So interrogative pronouns are used to ask questions, and if they are used with nouns, they become interrogative adjectives. We have the distributive adjectives. Now the indefinite numeral adjectives, each, every, either, neither. When used with nouns to show that persons or things are taken separately, either one at a time or several at a time, in separate lots, are called distributive adjectives. Take note of this. The indefinite numeral adjectives, when used with nouns to show that persons or things are taken separately, either one at a time or several at a time, in separate lots, are called distributive adjectives. Here again, we are having the definite numerals come under them. The adjective, no, just definite numerals I'll take separately, because when I was talking about definite numerals, over here when I told you definite numerals show exactly how many persons or how many things and in what order they are, that time I had to discuss this, that definite numerals are two types, the cardinals and the ordinals. When I told you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all cardinals. And if I tell you first, second, third, fourth, they are ordinals. So this is definite numerals is under this adjectives of number, and definite and indefinite we spoke about. Distributive adjectives I have told you, each, either, each, every, either, neither. Four distributive adjectives. Each, every, either, neither. Again, we have the demonstrative adjectives. We have learned so much about the demonstrative pronouns. That means they are pointers and all that. Here again, we say that demonstrative adjectives point out which person or thing is meant. This book is mine, and that book is yours. These trees are tall, those trees are short. Such, this, these, that, those, yonder are all demonstrative adjectives. This, that, these, those we know. To this group we are adding such and yonder also. Yonder fort once belonged to Shivaji is the example I have given over there. The next is the possessive adjective. Adjectives formed from pronouns in the genitive. Genitive means possessive case, are called as possessive adjectives. Last week also we discussed this. My mother is coming. Here my is a pronoun. But my mother, here my is an adjective because it is standing before the noun mother. Whose mother? My mother. So possessive adjective. Your time is up. Whose time? Your time. So your time, your is a possessive adjective. And right now we have done relative adjectives, the relative pronouns, which, what, when used as adjectives. Which, what, when used as adjectives are called relative adjectives. I gathered what information I could get. What information? Information ke pehle what khada hai. That is why here it is relative adjective. I was ill. Which fact caused my absence? Which fact ke pehle khada hai. Fact is a noun. That is why here which is a relative adjective. So which and what are, though they are relative pronouns, here they are relative adjectives because they are used with nouns. Now, the important part starts from here. The rules. These rules you have to take note of. In using adjectives of number, we use cardinal first and we use ordinal and then cardinal. In using adjectives of number, we first use ordinal, then cardinal. Example, she has read the first 3 chapters. First ordinal hai, 3 cardinal hai. I cannot say she has read the 3 first chapters. Wrong. First 3 chapters. I have read the last 4 stanzas. Last is coming before 4. Ordinal first, then cardinal. Second rule, when second rule, 1 or 2 adjectives can be used before or after nouns. A black and white film. So we can have 1 or 2 adjectives. Black is also an adjective. White is also an adjective. Film is a noun. So we can have 1 or 2 adjectives. Number 3. The following adjectives are used only predicatively. Means they always come in the predicate part of the sentence. In the beginning we did attributive, predicative. Attributive when the adjective comes before the noun. Predicative when the adjective comes in the predicate part of the sentence after the verb. So the following adjectives are used only predicatively. Which ones? Sleep, awake, afraid, ashamed, alike, alone, and the list goes on. Ram is alone. Ravi is ashamed. They are used in the predicative form. Some is used in the affirmative sentence, while any is used in a negative sentence. If I am talking about a sentence which is positive, then I am going to use some. If the sentence The meaning, there's an option of putting some and any. But if the sentence, the negative sentence or an interrogative sentence, then I am going to put any. Some is used for affirmative sentences. Any is used in negative or interrogative sentence. Some is, for example, I will buy some mangoes. Have you bought any mangoes? Interrogative sentence. So I have used any. Have you bought some mangoes? Wrong English. Have you bought any mangoes? Correct. Some is used in questions which are really offers, requests, or which expect the answer yes. Will you have some ice cream? It's an offer. I expect you to say yes. That is why I'm using some. Could you lend me some money? It's a request. I expect the answer to be yes. That is why I have used some. Did you buy some clothes? I expect that you did buy some clothes. That is why I am saying, did you buy some clothes? Next, any can be used after if in affirmative sentence. Now, right now I told you that any has to be used in a negative sentence. Any is going to be used in an interrogative sentence. Now I'm giving you, now the option is that if the sentence is affirmative, but it has the word if, then I can use any. If you need any help or if you need any money, I will help you. The sentence is affirmative. I will help you. Affirmative sentence. I used any. I used any because of the word if in the sentence. So any can be used after if in affirmative sentences. Rule number 5. Many is used before countable noun. Much is used before uncountable noun. We have done countable and uncountable nouns in the beginning. Countable nouns means those nouns which we can count. Uncountable nouns are those which we cannot count. Countable is book, countable is pen, countable is pencil, countable is balloons, fans. Uncountable is chocolate, uncountable is coffee, uncountable is rice, uncountable is cheese. Got it? Whenever it is an uncountable noun which I cannot count paper, I cannot count chocolate, as I told you, I cannot count cream, I cannot count oil, I cannot count cheese. There we are going to use much. The accident caused much damage. Damage is something I cannot count. She met many people there. Many, we can count the people. So many is going to be used with countable. Much is going to be used before uncountable noun. Rule number 6. Many or much should not be used objectively. Use a large number of. Instead of using many or a much, use a large number of. Use a large amount of. Use a great deal of. Means instead of using much or many in a sentence, when it comes in the object part of the sentence, when we are using it objectively, then you use words like, phrases like a large number of, a large amount of, a great deal of. She asked me a large number of questions. She asked me many questions. No. Mohan drank plenty of milk. Got it? Mohan drank much milk. Mohan drank plenty of milk. Few and a little cannot be used for the sense of a few or a little. This also I had done with you last week. I don't know, few, a few, and the few, little, a little, and the little. We have done these 3 things before. What's the meaning of few? What is the meaning of a few? And what is the meaning of the few? Chalo. It's given below. for little and for the meaning of few and little is nothing. Few and little means kuch bhi nahi, nothing. Always use hardly any in such cases. Bill has hardly any money to give her. Matlab he has nothing to give her. He has no money to give her. He has hardly any books to give me. Matlab he has no books. It means he has no books to give me. Few and little is nothing. A few or a little cannot be used in the place of the few and the little. Now what does little and little, a few and a little mean? वो देखते हैं. Little, not much, hardly any. अभी हमने ऊपर बोला. Little has negative meaning. Little मतलब नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं, nothing. Little is nothing. There is little hope of his recovery. मतलब वो recover नहीं करने वाला. He is not likely to recover. There is no hope. Little hope of his recovery means, actually instead of saying there is no hope of his recovery, we can say, it is better to say there is little hope of his recovery. Matlab, but I mean to say that there is nothing, there is no hope of his recovery. He is not likely to recover at all. Now, a little, some though not much. See, a little has a positive meaning. There is a little hope of his recovery. Matlab, there is some possibility that he recovers. A little hope, डालने के बाद the meaning changes. Now it becomes, he may possibly recover. He may possibly recover. The little means not much, but all there is. Whatever is there, sub. The little information he had was not quite remarkable. मतलब ज़्यादा information नहीं थी उसके पास, थोड़ी थी, पर जितनी भी थी, whatever, all there was, all the information that he had, the little information that he had means not much, but all that he had was not quite remarkable. So understand this three: few, a few, the few, little, a little, the little. I have already told you, few and little means nahi, kuch bhi nahi, nothing, nothing, nothing. Few, little, negative sense, kuch bhi nahi. A little or a little means some, kuch. Positive sense में कुछ तो है, some. And the little means ज़्यादा नहीं है, not much, but all that there is. Okay, this last I will do up till this page and stop after this. Okay, a few, and the few. Once again, few मतलब negative, कुछ भी नहीं, not many. Okay, some मतलब थोड़ा, कुछ भी थोड़ा है, and the few मतलब ज़्यादा नहीं है, not many, but all that are. Got it? So little, a few, and the few, little, a little, and the little. Ninth one, the same adjective may be an adjective of number or adjective of quality according to the sense. For example, now adjective, number, quantity. Now some is the adjective. I can use some as adjective of number. I can use some as adjective of quantity. Adjective of number, some is I lost some books. Means countable number of books I lost. I drank some milk. Kitna milk I can't count. Remember I told you it depends upon the noun. If the noun is countable or if the noun is uncountable. So some is being used with countable as well as uncountable nouns. Books are countable. I lost some books. The amount of books that I lost, I can count. I drank some milk, uncountable. How much milk? I cannot count. So some is being used with adjective as adjective of number also, and some is being used as adjective of quantity also. More boys are wanted for the job. Here more is a number, means there is a number of how many more. quantity, I want more milk. Again, because the noun is an uncountable noun, so more is being used as adjective of quantity. So some and more can be used both as adjectives of number and adjective of quantity according to the sense. Rule number 10, many followed immediately by a and an takes a singular noun and a singular verb. This is a very important rule. Many followed immediately by a or an takes a singular noun and singular verb. Now many is what? Many is बहुत सारे, quantity, number, ज़्यादा लोग. But क्योंकि उसके आगे many के बाद हमने a लगा दिया है, it is many takes a, then we have a singular noun and singular verb. Many a man was present. Many a man. A की वजह से plural, singular verb was present. So when many is followed by a, we take a singular noun, that is man, and a singular verb, that is was. Many a man was present there. Opposite to this is, if preceded by a with great or good following, it takes a plural verb. अभी देखो a कहाँ लिखा है? If a is coming after many, singular noun, singular verb. If a is coming before many और उसको एक और adjective लगा है, great, good, whatever, then plural verb, plural noun, plural verb. A great many boys were present there. Saw the difference? When I put a after many followed by a, singular noun, singular verb. If many is preceded by a, means a pehle aata hai and then it's coming, and we have another adjective also, good or great, whatever, then it is going to be plural noun and plural verb. Got it? Let's come to the 11th rule. A demonstrative adjective and the noun qualified by it must be of the same number. We have done this in pronouns also. This stand is singular, these is plural, that is singular, those is plural. This kind of book is rare. This kind of book is rare. So the demonstrative adjective and the noun should be must be of the same number. Book, so this. Each and every are which? Distributive adjectives. So each and every, each may be used both as a pronoun and adjective. But every is used only as an adjective. Difference between each and every. Each and every are both distributive adjectives. But let us see the differences between each and every. Each may be used as a pronoun and adjective, but every is used only as an adjective. Second difference, each is used with two or more than two things. Every is used with more than two things. Second difference, each is used with two or more things, but every is used with more than two things. Each directs attention to the individuals forming any group, but every talks about the total group. Third difference, each directs attention to the individuals forming in the group. If there's a group, each child in that group, we're talking about each individual in the group. Every talks about the total group. Each is used only when the number in the group is limited and definite. Each is used only when the number in the group is limited and definite, but every is used when the number is indefinite. So we have given you, I have given you 4 different differences between each and every. Both each and every are distributive adjectives. Each is used both as pronoun and adjective, but every is used only as an adjective. Difference 2, each is used with 2 or more than 2 things. Every is used with more than 2 things. 3, each directs attention to the individuals forming any group, but every is the total. Every talks about, every directs attention to the total group. Each is used only when the number in the group is limited and definite. Every is used when the number is indefinite. Let's take the example. Let's see examples. 5 boys were seated on each bench. I know how many students, how many boys? 5 were seated on each bench. Every seat was taken means all. I'm talking about the seats. Every seat was taken. Each one of these chairs is broken. Means there are many chairs, but I'm talking about each chair over there. It rained every day during my holidays. Means all the holidays that I had, every day it rained. Difference between each and every. Under distributive adjective, we have either, neither, also. Right? I told you each, every, either, neither are distributive adjectives. Either means one of 2. It also means each of the 2, means both. Understand? Either means one of 2 or each of the 2, both. You can choose either party, means one party or the other. You can choose this one or the other one. Either side scored a goal means each of the sides, both the sides scored a goal. Now to neither. Neither is negative form of either. It is a negative, opposite side of either. Neither means neither the one nor the other. ये भी नहीं, वो भी नहीं. Neither party won the game means none of the parties, none of the sides won the game. Neither is used with 2. Means if I say that neither of the 3 boys is intelligent, it is wrong. If it is 3, then I have to use the word none. None of the 3 boys is intelligent. And last one over here is this. These indicate something near to the speaker, that those indicate more distant objects. This we have already spoken about because they talk about the nearness and farness of the object. So this and these means the things that are near to me, and that and those indicate the distant objects. Actually, there is much more, but we stop on these 14 rules for today. Got it? I think you'll have taken down the rules. That means you'll have screenshots you might have taken or whatever. But make sure that this week you go through these notes, because adjectives and adverbs and modifiers are very important topics of grammar. Adjectives, adverbs and modifiers. So 14 rules for today to be learned. Kindly learn them and go through your foreign words which I have given today. Go through the roots also. Next week I will take a we will have a game or something like that, where all the roots that I have done up till date, means I have done a lot of roots till now. I believe I think I have done 50 roots till now. More than 50 I think I have done. So we will give each one of you a chance to see how many of you have learned till now. So brush up on your roots also for next week. And yeah, I think I'll stop here because there is a lot more to do. There are many more rules to be done. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much, Vita. Thank you so much for Happy Teachers Day. Yes, there were certain children who yesterday called me up. Thank you so much. Those who have sent their messages yesterday on WhatsApp. Thank you so much, Vita. God bless you all. And when y'all become something in life, that is the biggest gift I think you can give us. When y'all, whatever y'all expect in life, whatever your desire for, whatever y'all wish, when you achieve that, I think that is the biggest gift that a teacher can have after she sees her students shining. Thank you so much, Beta. Thank you, Sahil. Thank you so much. And I think I'll stop the class here. We'll end with the meeting. Thank you so much, all of you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Belated Happy Teachers Day.
Thank you, Beta. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Beta. God bless you all.